PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, tight end edition. I'm Ian Hartitz. Joining me, as always, the one, the only, Dwain, the Rock McFarland. Dwain, tight ends, great day to be great. How are you?
Oh, man, I am doing fantastic. It's about to rain here. Like, it's been so damn hot in Texas. We finally got rain last week, which was nice. My grass is loving it. So, yeah, I'm excited. Like, hopefully I don't lose the connection here, though. But, yeah, tight ends, like we've already done. Quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. Like, we're going to wrap it up with, a position we definitely don't want to ignore. But if you do ignore it, we're going to tell you how to.
I'm going to be in Scottsdale this weekend where it's supposed to be like over 100 every single day. So, yeah, I'll be in your neck of the country down there, Dwain. Coming to us from the good old Midwest, Nathan Jahnke, resident PFF ranking expert. He's been with us the last 3 episodes. And here we are ready to talk tight ends. Tight ends, Nate. How are you?
I'm well. I feel like all preseason long, all I've been doing is saying, okay, well, I'm not drafting that tight end. Okay, not drafting that one after how they've been used. And now we get to talk about it.
And Nate, you have a public service announcement. One of your buddies actually had quite the mishap. Would you like to let our listeners know just one small thing in case they don't already?
Sure. So my friend James, he was doing an auction league where he has keepers, and he had Trey Lance last year because I told him to get Trey Lance. And he thought Trey Lance was still going to be the backup in San Francisco. So he was still going to keep him for another year, knowing that the following year he'd get him as the starter. And I'm like, no. You get him this year as a starter. You don't have to worry about keeping any other quarterbacks. You're good. So, James, if you're listening, pay more attention to what we're doing here at PFF.
Nathan literally has projected depth charts for every single team up on PFF.com. So you, that listener right now will know that Trey Lance is in fact the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback. So even if it only helped one of you out there, I'm glad we got to spend 30 seconds making that crystal clear. And come on, James, get your shit together, bro. So, all right, with all that said, tight end, boys, Dwain, I've been throwing this to you first, but what has been, I guess, has your strategy changed at tight end depending on if you're at the early, mid, late draft position? We've talked about, for Kelce, Pitts, Andrews, there is kind of the right guys that can go off the board in order to draft them. Have you found yourself, getting them more often based on, I guess, where you're kind of initially picking?
Yeah, so if you're picking from early position, you're obviously not taking a tight end with the first pick overall, unless you're playing in like tight end premium times 4, and then maybe you take, Travis Kelce. But even in a 1.5 point per reception kind of setup, you're not taking one that early. So if you're in early position, which we call picks 1 through 4, I call picks 1 through 4. If I'm taking a tight end, it's typically in round 2 when it gets back to me if Mark Andrews is still on the board. Like, so I'm willing to do that. Like maybe I started with, Christian McCaffrey, come back, get Mark Andrews, then grab a receiver, in round 3. As far as from middle position, you could do the same thing. You could draft a receiver or running back of your choice. If you wanted to take Mark Andrews in round 2, you could. My preference though there, Ian, is to go ahead and pass tight end, because a lot of times Saquon Barkley will fall to you, who has an every down role. We could see Alvin Kamara fall back because of the legal situation. Like, he's still technically going off the board in that range. I don't want to pass those running backs for a tight end. So what I'll usually do is I'll start, running back, or receiver running back. And then Kyle Pitts becomes an option in round 3. If you're drafting from the end, usually Kyle Pitts can still be an option at the end of round 3. So I'm very happy to jump on board with Pitts. But if you don't want to do that, going around the turn in round 4, and you can also do this from middle, position, really anywhere in round 4, like these guys, it's weird. Like I was with Edwin Porras, yesterday, and I did a Best Ball Mania with him, and I was sitting there, and like both Waller and Kittle fell into round 5. Right. But a lot of times they go in round 4. So I'm very willing to grab one of those 2 tight ends in round 4, Waller or Kittle. I do think that, like, if I can, I would like to have one of the tight ends that I just named. Like, I would prefer that. Now, we have strategies that we'll talk about in a minute. Like, if that doesn't work out for you, but just the way that all the tiers kind of set up and where the value is at other positions, I think you can definitely pull that off. Kyle Pitts is, honestly, like, I'm in a love affair right now, with Kyle Pitts. So like, I'm to the point where I'm like, I can't stop drafting Kyle Pitts. So round 3, and especially, man, like sometimes he still slides into early round 4 in some of these drafts. Like if that happens, like I can't say no.
Just imagining Mrs. McFarland like throwing a glass of water on Dwayne's face. Who is Kyle Pitts? Who is this man? Nate, similar sentiment in terms of, I guess, are you willing to take these big 5 tight ends, depending on exactly where they're falling, or is there one of them that just time and time again, you're like, the price is too steep? Like, this is your chance to tell all of us that are drafting Travis Kelce as a top 15 player that we're completely full of shit.
Yeah. So first off, I'll say I agree with Dwain on a lot of this. Mark Andrews at the end of the second round, typically only if everything goes how you expect it to, but if someone else falls, not afraid to jump on them. And then I'm very consistently, when Kittle or Waller is available in that 4th round, I'll get them. But yeah, I'm not getting Travis Kelce with the top 15 pick. So the end of last year, we started to see the Chiefs decrease his playing time a little bit over time. We've also seen basically all of the metrics that you would look at: PFF grade, yards per route run, any other efficiency metric, though were the lowest that they've been in the last couple of years for him. And Kelce is getting fairly old for a tight end, which the tight ends right now are doing unprecedented things to begin with. And other players at other positions are playing longer, so it's hard to know exactly when Kelce will stop playing as well. But we started to see that decrease in playing time, and it carried on into the preseason. They were rotating him in and out, which is something that they had not done in previous years. The previous years, whenever Mahomes was on the field, Kelce was also basically on the field. And that correlation was there from the preseason to the regular season every other year. So I think they will be continuing to rotate him out more, which if you're getting a tight end in round 1, you want him to be really, really special, which is what Kelce has been. But if you're just chipping away at that a little bit and a little bit more, it's harder for me when Kittle is there in round 4, when Pitts is there in round 3, when you're still getting someone like Stephon Diggs at the end of round 1, or one of these top 10 running backs. So that's a big thing with me for Kelce. On the other hand, they were using him more in the slot last year than any other year. So if they keep on doing that, then Kelce can still be good at that spot. But basically all these wide receivers they've been adding are slot receivers. So I could see that being a problem for Kelce as well.
PFF rankings, Kevin Cole's the highest on Travis Kelce, 9th player on his board. Dwain and I in lockstep, 14th player overall. Nathan, 30th ranked player. My goodness. Was it something Kelce said as well, Nathan? Like, look, I hear you, but 30th, man. My goodness.
No, the guy's a future Hall of Famer. I'm perfectly happy with Kelce as a player. It's just we're reaching that point where if they want to prolong his career, they're going to use him less and less often.
It is one of those things where obviously, we see the same thing with these running back committees. Very smart real life move, but fantasy football managers around the globe just going to be absolutely cursing them out if a lot of that does come to fruition. So yeah, it's a good point. We'll see exactly how it plays out. But I will say, more and more as I've been doing these drafts, I haven't found myself getting a ton of Kelce because everything needs to kind of fall right in order for me to feel comfortable getting him. The 13 players I would be taking ahead of Kelce in the majority of drafts: McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, Henry, Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, and Alvin Kamara. And as I look at it, I would probably take Saquon Barkley ahead of him as well. So maybe 15th overall at this point. Still not quite in Nathan territory, but not exactly the great day to be great that we are used to seeing with Travis Kelce there. Fellas, Drew Davenport, the auction god. I say it every single time we've done these episodes. Overall, Drew, thoughts on the tight end position, Dwain?
You're not going to spend up like even for the very top guys, right? Because typically they just, as much as you want to have the positional advantage, they're not going to score the raw fantasy points that you're going to see as far as upside goes with the guys at running back, right? And at receiver, they're going to go for the really high prices. But having said that, like I'm fine being it on the bidding. And it's like Nathan mentioned in the last, pod about wide receivers, you've got some assigned values to those guys. And for the guys like Pitts, for the guys like Waller and Kittle, they're really the ones I'm trying to get. I'm usually trying to get one of those 3. I'm usually not getting Andrews or Kelce, when you just look at where the auction prices are on the tight ends this year. But sometimes that next tier, you might get a deal on one of those 3. And then if you don't, though, you're not going to panic. At that point, like I'm going to pivot more to, a guy like a Goedert, or come back with some guys that we'll talk about in a minute that are more like the sleepers based on some of the stuff we've seen this preseason. So the main thing is don't get over carried away. So like if you're thinking, I'm not going to spend over 20% on any player on this particular team, like I'm going to cut that lower, right, for tight end. You shouldn't be willing to spend the same amount that you would, just like you wouldn't take a tight end number 1 overall. Again, like I talked about, even if you haven't done an auction, if you've been doing snake drafts, you kind of have an understanding of where the value of players should be. So really value them like in that similar kind of manner.
Every time you say don't panic, I just think of the Will Ferrell old school scene after he got freaking torched by all the flames. Don't panic, keep your composure. Like but it's actually true. As funny as that is, it's also good, sound, smart fantasy football draft strategy advice. Just because you don't get, if you're like, man, I really want Waller or Kittle here in round 5, you don't get them. Your next reaction shouldn't be, all right, well, I need my tight end. Looks like Dalton Schultz, you're next man up. No, bad. Stick to the value. Don't panic, as Dwain and Will Ferrell have told us over the years. Stick to your guns. Fellas, let's get into some of the nitty-gritty here. Nathan, who is the single cheapest tight end that you would feel comfortable starting in week 1? Why is it Dawson Knox?
I feel like I had 2 ways that I wanted to answer this. One was Dallas Goedert, even though I have him at tight end 6, because I don't want to wait for anyone after that. I want to make sure I get one of those top 6 guys. And then if I don't get one of those top 6, then I'm like, looking at some of the tight ends near the bottom of my rankings, and there are guys where I'm like, okay, I know they're going to be starters. I know they're going to be on the field. They could score touchdowns. So like someone like Daniel Bellinger with the Giants, he's their clear tight end 1. He's going to be on the field every play. He was throughout the preseason, and they don't have anyone else. So he's going to be on the field. He's going to play. And I don't know if he's going to be that much worse than some of these other tight ends who are rotating in and out.
It is absolute madness that, hey, we're talking about who's going to be next Dawson Knox, and maybe it's the guy playing with Brian Daboll again, and all these wide receiver injuries and just Kenny Galladay, his route running. What'd they say? He's like a mannequin out there in terms of how stiff he is. Like, my God, I don't think I've ever heard a more damning training camp observation. Oh, I love it. Just September 1st, that's the type of news that Kenny Galladay gets to wake up and check out on the old Twitter sphere. Sure, he loves that. But yeah, Daniel Bellinger, man, as much as Saquon Barkley, I think, is the big answer to where the ball is going to go. Certainly wouldn't be completely shocking to see Bellinger have the every down role and actually come away, with 5 or 6 week 1 targets. Dwain, is there a line that you're kind of drawing where you just really, really want to have one of these tight ends just as your starter? Again, if you don't get it, you're not panicking, but where do you kind of draw a line to hopefully get someone at value?
Well, I love Nate's call on Dallas Goedert. Like, I've written about him multiple times. He's a centerpiece in my tight end strategy article for the season. I've written him up like in my guys. I've written him up, and like, hey, the main guys you're trying to target right in the first 10 rounds of drafts that can really, kind of swing your season. So I love him. And the thing with Goedert, like a lot of people are down on him because they're looking at him and they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to deal with more target competition. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Like, I get it. The Eagles ran the ball a lot last year. But at the end of the day, like when you really look at Dallas Goedert, like, look, to pop a top, like on these elite top end, tight end seasons, it's not some guy that just falls into targets because they're available. Dalton Schultz. It is due to guys that are true, like just difference makers at the position. And Dallas Goedert, like, if you're looking below the guys we named earlier, which we named Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller, George Kittle, the only name below all of those that actually profiles from a talent perspective the same way as those, he just hasn't had a season like them yet, it's Dallas Goedert. Like, he has an ability to man targets. 2.34 yards per route run last season was second most in the NFL behind only Dallas Goedert. Behind George Kittle. 90.5 PFF receiving grade. Third behind only Mark Andrews and George Kittle. Like, this is an elite tight end that can really do some special things. And when you're talented, you have outs. All of a sudden, the Eagles decide to throw the ball more. He's going to outperform his ADP. One of those receivers get hurt. A.J. Brown's on and off the field all the time, as much as we may hate to say it. Like, that's going to lead, to more work for Dallas Goedert. So he's really the one I want, Ian. If I miss him, I am willing. I think like the last one where we've talked about this before, and you're just kind of drawing the line, like it's Zach Ertz. Now we have some upside guys that we like below that. We like Dawson Knox. We like, we can talk about Njoku and some of these other guys in a minute, but it's really Goedert is the main one, and his ADP makes it doable. You can get him in round 8 of most drafts right now. Even if you want to reach a little bit, like at the end of round 7, to make sure you get him, because you may have multiple guys like at another positional tier that you like, but you see Goddard's just the last one sticking out at tight end. I'm fine, reaching, 6 picks to get Goedert, just to make sure that I have him. To your point, if you miss, don't panic. And again, we can talk about some of these guys in a minute.
Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, Kelce, Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, Waller, the big five. Dalton Schultz, pick 55. Darren Waller's pick 54. Goedert's pick 70. So Schultz is literally priced closer to Darren Waller than he is to Dallas Goedert. The Goedert, again, pick 70. Zach Ertz, pick 87. And Dawson Knox, pick 96. Having those three guys available there has been a big reason why I've been more confident to take like 5 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds of drafts, because I know that one of those guys should be waiting there. Very similar sentiment to the Kareem Hunt, Cordero Patterson, Chase Edmonds kind of tier of running backs. I know Edmonds flying up there a little bit more these days, but when we have these rare upside starters at the position, going in rounds 7 through 9, I just think it gives you a lot more flexibility to get those high upside wide receivers like one Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit earlier in your drafts and not feel like you're leaving yourself completely hanging at these positions. All right, fellas.
Hey, Ian, can we real hit? I know like this next question, I see what it is, and we're talking about the guys we don't want to draft, but like maybe just a quick hitter, like just the guys that are after the ones we just talked about that like are the primary targets, like that I would be like I'll name them real quick, and then Nathan, you can jump in with any. So, and this is based on preseason, so Nathan, you'll probably have some good context too. David Njoku has been in a route 80% of the time with the starting quarterbacks for Cleveland, whether it was Deshaun Watson, whether it was, Jacoby Brissett in those games he's played. He's traditionally been a guy they've rotated with Stefanski. The last time he saw near an 80% route participation, he was the tight end 9. That was in 2018. So I have David Njoku moved up to number 11 in my ranks, just behind Dawson Knox, moved him ahead of Irv Smith. Another guy similar. Now this one's a little shakier because Pharaoh Brown has been out for the Texans. He strained a hamstring, I believe, is in week 1, and so he hasn't been out there for the other 2 weeks. But Brevin Jordan also over 80% route participation. Historically, if you're over this 80%, it's a huge indicator for tight ends being on the field. Doesn't mean they're going to be smash plays, but they're going to have a real good chance to be a low end tight end 1. So Brevin Jordan, is another one. Nathan already named Daniel Bellinger. That was one I have on my list. And then there's another one, Mo Alley Cox, because we had, I forgot the name of the other tight end that got hurt, but they've basically gone. I think. Yeah, Ogletree. Yeah. So he got hurt. And so now we're not seeing as much of a rotation again with the starters, with Matt Ryan in the game. Mo Alley Cox, 75% route participation. Like if you told me to project that 3 weeks ago, I would have said 60%. And so they did pay Mo Alley Cox. Looks like he's going to be out there. He's going to be getting close, to that 80% as well. So those are all guys that I like quite a bit. One last one is Evan Ingram, actually a 78% route participation with Trevor Lawrence in the game. So even though we heard some early news out of camp that like this might be, more of a split situation with Evan Ingram, and is it Dan Arnold, I believe, is the other guy that we would be dealing with there. It just really hasn't come to fruition, with the starters out there. So those are 3 guys. Or 4 guys, Njoku, Evan Ingram, Brevin Jordan, Mo Alley Cox, add a 5th on with the Daniel Bellinger that Nathan named. I like all of those guys late. But I'm prioritizing Njoku out of all of them because he did get paid, and we know that he's got that first round capital, raw athletic score of a 9.3. It's like there's still this chance, right? He hasn't shown it yet, but Njoku still could pop.
You act like I did to have this on the show sheet. Do you know how many minutes I put into this, Dwain? Like a good 5 or 6, and you just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I just skip over it? Oh, I see the writing. Hell. Oh, my bad.
The notes say general strategy tips in 1 quarterback redraft.
All right, Dwain. Well, thanks for getting the 0.7 before pick 5, but all good points. Hey, how are you going to list? Hold on though. How are you listing 5 late round tight ends and not your boy Alberto? I thought we're back in. Dolchich is on.
Well, I was actually saving that one because I thought I did read the show sheet and it's the last one. So I somehow missed 0.7, and now I see that it has sub point A. Dwayne decided to fuck this order. So like I see the show sheet.
Awesome transitioning going on here. All right, guys.
We're professionals. Don't try this at home.
Nathan, I guess we're talking late round tight ends now. What targets basically outside of the top 10 picks do you think could be this year's Dawson Knox, Robert Tonyan, the cheaper tight end that we look up at the end of the year and go, oh shit, we got a top 8 player now?
Yeah, so I like all the guys that Dwayne talked about with how they were used. When you mention guys like Dawson Knox, Robert Tonyan, I think of tight ends who aren't going to see a ton of targets but have high chances of scoring touchdowns. And we saw a couple of those guys last year. Hunter Henry was another one. But this year, guys that I feel like fit that profile, Everett with the Chargers and Hurst with the Bengals. We didn't really see either of them in the preseason, just with those teams resting their starters. But they should be the top receiving tight ends with those teams, should both be seeing a significant amount of playing time and playing with two of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. So I could see those guys not necessarily seeing a ton of targets, but seeing a decent chance of scoring a touchdown each week. So those are the guys I think are most similar to Knox and Tanyan.
You have them both with 17 touchdowns, Nate, a touchdown per week, huh?
Not quite that many touchdowns, but a chance of scoring a touchdown each week.
That's just a median projection, Dwayne. You know, it could always work out differently. The four guys I have looking at that. Again, a tight end that we at least think doesn't suck, and a great offense with a fantastic quarterback, or at least, in Irv Smith's case, a good quarterback, and then just someone in an offense that we wouldn't be surprised if we look up at the end of the year. They only have 70, maybe 80 targets, but they find a way to get into the end zone 8 to 10 times. I do think Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst, Gerald, Everett, and arguably Tyler Higbee all fit that criteria. But as we've seen, man, Tyler Higbee just breaking Dwayne's mind week after week last season, putting up the elite route rates, and fair play to Sean McVay, just literally putting Tyler Higbee out there, not even to run like wind sprints deep, but just like, hey, stand out there and we're gonna get Cooper Kupp matched up against a linebacker or safety in the slot.
Tyler Higbee gave a new definition to what we would call a joker role. Really is if you cover him, joke's on you, right? That's what the new joker role is for McVay. Yeah, just like totally like just putting him out there wide, making in the team's in zone, and the cornerback stays with him. And then Cooper Kupp gets a matchup against a linebacker. It's like, oh my God.
I am going to go ahead and take Dwayne's previous point about David Njoku. That's going to be our sleeper of the day here on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Hey, in the past, we've seen the Browns running these, 3 tight end just rotations. That's why Austin Hooper got that big deal. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to meet the high expectations in fantasy land that went along with that. But everything we've seen from Njoku in this preseason, getting the money, having the first team snap rates, and even going back to the one game last year where Austin Hooper missed it, 100% snap rate. Harrison Bryant will still be out there, and he's pretty good in his own right, but I do think this is far more trending towards, the Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert situations in past years where, okay, maybe the second tight end's good, but I don't think there's going to be any debate about who the number one is in Cleveland. His name is David Njoku. Dwayne, getting back to the schedule that I took time to put together here. Who's the tight end outside the top 5 who you think can realistically finish top 3 and then kind of have that same sort of momentum going to next year? Like, who could be, I don't think Mark Andrews was going outside the top 5 last year, but who do you think could just be firmly in that conversation this time next year?
It's Dallas Goedert. It's easily Dallas Goedert. Like that's the profile we're looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, Nathan talked about it before. That there was a right answer, and it was Dallas Goedert. So good job by both of you. I think that's all we need to say there. It's why I'm fading Dalton Schultz. I can see the sentiment, and I think Nathan, you said you have Goedert straight up ranked tight end 6. I can see why someone would rank Dalton Schultz tight end 6 over Goedert. I can't see taking him a round and a half, 2 rounds ahead of Dallas Goedert. That's where I draw the line. That's why I'm far more willing to get Goedert. And hey, if you don't, you're not screwed. You still have guys like Ertz, like Knox, and then some of the sleepers we mentioned to fall back on. As we've been saying, don't panic, whatever you do. Dwayne, who's a top 10 tight end? And maybe it's Dalton Schultz. You just don't find yourself drafting. It's Dalton Schultz. Yeah.
It's Dalton Schultz, man. Because look, the talent profile is okay. It's not great. And look, we're projecting Dalton Schultz to have a few more targets than last year, but it's just an ADP thing, right? He's going 30 spots in some cases ahead of Dallas Goedert. I'm just not doing that. And where you're taking him, people are taking him around 5 or 6 when you could take Kyler Murray. You could be taking Jalen Hurts. Hell, you could be taking Lamar Jackson. I'm much more likely for a onesie position, like a quarterback or tight end. If I'm going with either one of those two in round 5 or 6, I'm going with the quarterbacks. Kyler Murray can win your league. Dalton Schultz is not going to win your league. I'm just going to say it right now. He's not going to hurt you. He's not going to be a bad player, but you shouldn't draft him in round 5, right? It's all about, it's like you say all the time, Ian, right? We hate the ADP, not the player. Look, I'm a Cowboys fan. I like Dalton Schultz. I think he's fine. It's just his ADP is out of alignment whenever you look at the fact that Hawkinson's the same thing, goes on, 6 to 12 picks later, and then Dallas Goedert really gives you much more upside and goes 20 to 30 picks later.
Dare I say the most mid tight end being a top 60 pick of the 21st century. Nathan, are you also out on Dallas? Not Dallas Goedert. Are you also out on Dalton Schultz at cost?
Yeah, definitely him, but also in general, like the tight ends that aren't in my top 6, and also ignoring Kelce, which I have at tight end too, which I'm not getting where I have him ranked. So outside of best ball, where I'm trying to get exposure to plenty of guys, if I don't get one of my top 6 ranked tight ends, I am perfectly happy waiting for Irv Smith to fall to me and David Njoku to fall to me and not worry about those other guys ranked 7 to 10. So if I don't get my top 6 guys, I'm just fine waiting and not getting any of the other top 10 players.
It is funny. I always bark about not having like a pure do not draft list, but my solution is just to like insultingly like rank someone so low that you're not going to take them anyway. So I'm not so sure that's actually like nicer or better, but it's what we're doing. And to Nate's point, yeah, Kelce and our guy Dalton Schultz maybe just a bit too high in the eye of the public. Final things, guys. I don't want a bold call here. We've kind of had our sleepers and all that. I just want a final stat line prediction for one Alberto. Dwain, receptions, yards, touchdowns for Alberto. Go. And, whoever's closest will either forget about it or we'll come up with something to do later.
Oh, man. 45 receptions.
Oh, come on. Take a stand.
I can't. Like, how do I? Like, I'm trying to. So look, fine. We'll give him more than 10 yards per catch, like which most tight ends get. Like, let's give him 12, Ian. I'll let you do the math on the fly on that. Oh. And let's give him 6 touchdowns.
I think that's 540.
Yeah, there you go. So all you gotta do is do the 450 plus 2 times the 45. That's another 90. You got it.
Dude, I had this finance degree and shit in college, and I was applying to all these different jobs, and like I went for like one trader job, and I was just so spooked, and they gave me just some like layup multiplication question, and I just like blanked, and it was so bad that I didn't even get like a call back. I didn't even get like an email or a call back telling me like I didn't get it. It was just so understood by the time we were done with that interview. That was an L I took that 20-year-old Ian took back in the day. Yeah, I'm happy that now I trade fantasy football players, not actual financial things. Anyway, Nate, what's your final stat line prediction for Alberto?
I think I'll just make it really easy for you. 33 catches, 333 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Now that's an insult. That's what I was looking for. I'm going to be the optimist here. I'm going to go 60 catches, 750 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's how he's not going to work out.
It was really good, and 2 touchdowns.
Eric Tomlinson just going to be getting all the goal line shit there. We'll see what happens. Albert O, one of the most talked about guys of the offseason. I think if you just looked, I would love to see, just kind of a map of his ADP from freaking like February to now, because truly has been all over the place. The Gabriel Davis, if you will, of the tight end position, if I don't mind saying myself. Good stuff, guys. Knocked out another one of these in under 30 minutes. The critics said it couldn't be done. This is going to be our last podcast until we get into week 1. We're going to be back next Wednesday, actually, Dwain and myself going through each and every game ahead of week 1 action. So our normal in-season schedule, Sunday night, we are going to be reviewing every game that happened. No podcast on Monday because, we just freaking talk for 2-3 hours sometimes on Sunday night. Get that in. Enjoy Monday Night Football. We'll be back early Tuesday going over all things waivers. Nathan's going to be on that podcast a lot. I haven't told him that yet, but that's just the way it's going to be. He's always coming out with this great waiver wire content early on in the week. I want to take advantage of that. Dwain and myself going to be previewing every game on Wednesday as we usually do. Really excited about our Thursday show. Still figuring out the exact people who are going to be on there. But in the past, that was more of a DFS episode. And I don't want to ignore DFS, but we're going to make it more of a matchup, betting props with a little bit of DFS stuff thrown in there, trying to make it more applicable to the general football fan out there. Friday injuries, and we'll try and mix in some start-sit streams throughout, particularly on Sunday morning. We're going to have a start-sit hour, just basically trying to teach you guys how to fish all throughout the week. But once it's Sunday morning at 11 a.m., we'll just give you the damn fish at that point and give our opinions on who you should actually be starting and sitting. So thank you guys, for listening to us throughout the entire off season. My goodness, we've been through a lot since February. Week 1 is finally on the way. Dwain, you hyped? I'm hyped, man.
Of course I'm hyped. Like, everything we've done finally going to pay off. Well, we hope it's going to pay off, or it's like the tweet that you put out the other day. The picture of what you think about your fantasy team after the draft, and then after week 1, you're just heavily boozing, and you look like you've aged 20, like you've been a president. Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
I finished this ESPN draft, and I looked at my team, and I was like, "Oh, this is looking good." And I decided to look at the other teams in the league, and I was like, "You know what? All these teams look pretty good." I'm not going to lie here. Could have been obviously this was a 10 team league, and the 8-team leagues. My goodness, you just have one stacked juggernaut after another there. Nathan, any final words of wisdom for someone out there doing their fantasy draft this Sunday? If you want to give your best Troy speech or pump up thing, the floor is yours.
No, the best thing you can do is go to PFF and go to our analysis. We have all of our rankings. I've been updating them daily with all the random Marlon Mack gets cut from the team. Okay, now he's on the practice squad. All these movements of guys in the 200 to 400 range. So even if you're in a deeper league and drafting all these guys late, we have you covered there. So that's the best thing you can do is make sure you have time to prepare for your draft before you actually draft. Go to PFF. We've got you covered, and then you will dominate and be happy at the end of it.
PFF.com or the new PFF app. You can get it with iPhones, Apple. I hear you Canadians. You guys were yelling at me that we don't apparently have it available there. I have brought the issue up to the overlords at PFF and actually confident that it's a fairly easy fix to make that available. So keep that out. I know we have some Brazilians, some Aussies that maybe listen to this as well. Let me know, and we will try to make that happen for all you guys. Always appreciate the international crowd. The fact that, they just are waking up at these weird ass times, especially in the Aussies case to watch these games. Those are the true grinders amongst us in this community. So PFF app, get all of our updated rankings and so much more. Talked about the quad force already, but yeah, that's how when we get a start sit question, guys, and I get it. It's cool for us to, actually, and I like interacting with people and everything, but if we can't get to your question, we have rankings for these exact sort of situations. And you can go view those on PFF.com or with the PFF app. So sincerely, good luck to all of you in your drafts this weekend. Take no prisoners. Don't be afraid to, ruin friendships just to get that fantasy championship. That's what we're here for. We want to win. Anyone that's in your way, shove them aside and go draft Amon-Ra St. Brown. So for Dwain, for Nathan, I'm Ian. Thanks so much for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody.